I understood his concern, but I thought the argument was a logical fallacy. It was irrelevant.
Okay.
The reason I state that, Chair, is because I think, like Advocate Pretorius took us through earlier, the data center that Transnet used was outsourced to T-Systems. So by giving T-Systems the data center and now you bundle your network with that, in my mind would increase the concentration risk, not mitigate the risk. So that's why I didn't quite understand that, and I provided that feedback to Mr. Molefe.
Well, for more on that story, we cross to our reporter Mbalendle Mthethwa, who's standing by in Parktown for us. She's been observing the state capture inquiry. Mbali, some very damning allegations or statements being made by Mr. Westhuisen.
Good afternoon, Nompu. Yes, indeed. The first time we heard about this Neotel contract was when acting CEO Mohamedi was here before the commission, and he testified that Brian Molefe had instructed Transnet to overturn. Brian Molefe overturned a decision by Transnet to award to Neotel, and he had decided to give the contract to T-Systems, as we have heard this morning. Now, we've heard Van der Westhuisen talking about how there was no logical reason for this decision, and he says that T-Systems, he basically alludes to T-Systems receiving some form of special treatment in the sense that they were allowed to give their best and final price, even though the period for that time to basically the period had long gone, had been. Wow. My apologies about that. Had long gone. And he says that the same opportunity should have been given to other bidders. And he says that even though they had given that 10% discount, they still were not the first and the best bidder. They were second. However, he talks about the meeting that they had with Brian Molefe, and he talks about how he felt rather isolated because he was the only one raising concerns and objections to the decision to basically award to T-Systems. And he says that the reason for the risks that were cited during that meeting somewhat did not make sense to him. However, he says he went ahead and drafted the memorandum awarding to T-System against his judgment. And even though he felt that he shouldn't have been doing that, he felt that, it would have been career suicide and he could have possibly been victimized and sidelined. And that's the reason why he'd gone ahead with writing the memorandum to award to T-Systems.
Mbali, just before the lunch break there was a conversation or discussion around a meeting that Mr. Van der Westhuisen was involved with Anuj Singh between them and Neotel. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Nompu, I can give you a bit of background to that meeting. Now, we heard earlier on that Neotel had bought network infrastructure from Transnet, and they had an agreement with them, a 5-year agreement to basically provide them with network services. And this was basically an opportunity for Transnet to buy back those assets because they felt that, too much, it gave too much power to a supplier. And if they wanted to cut off Transnet, the results of that would be catastrophic. And for that reason, they felt to mitigate some of those risks, it was better to negotiate with Neotel and try to buy back those assets.
Was there anything untoward about that meeting?
I think we're yet to hear about if there was anything untoward. He is still just relaying the events and the meetings that took place before the contract, the buyback, was actually concluded. So we are going to hear more about that after this lunch break.
Okay, Mbali, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much. That was my colleague Mbalendle Mthethwa reporting. Over to you, Arabile.